Hey, so recently our team's been creating animations for our learning content, and I thought I'd just share with you some things that we've learnt. Throughout the process, we've come up with better ways of doing things, we've realized things, and I thought I would share it with you guys just so if you are creating animations, you can use these tips to make it a really efficient process for you. And I know just before we get started, I know a lot of people can think animations are really difficult to make and it can seem quite complicated. There are a lot of programs out there where you can create animations really easily. So programs that has like preset assets where you can just drag things onto the screen. So animations are definitely possible for your organization. It's just finding a program that works for you. So the first tip is about whether an animation is actually necessary. And this is a really important question to ask because I know when I first started creating animations and we had access to a program that we could use for animations, whenever I was designing a learning solution, I would get really excited and think, oh, I could make this an animation and this could be an animation, because I thought it would be really engaging, it would motivate people, it'd be a bit more fun than the usual text on screen. But over time I thought about, you really need to make sure that the animation is actually going to add value to the content. So is the content that you're communicating through the animation, is it best communicated in that forum or in that format? And a way you can think about this is the information that you're communicating, is it a dynamic flow chart that would work really well if it was animated and help people understand it? Is it information that could potentially be a visual metaphor that could really help the learner understand a concept? And basically overall, is it content that would be benefited through being created in an animation? And if it's not, I would recommend not just creating an animation for the sake of it, but just only creating animations for concepts that are better learnt through a visual format. The second tip is to think about your learning objectives. So when you have a piece of content, there should be learning objectives that you're trying to meet or the learner needs to obtain at the end of that training. So before you create your animations, have a look at the learning objectives, and if any of those animations are supposed to achieve those learning objectives, really make sure that when you're planning out what your animation will be, that it really taps into those objectives. So an example I had is, for example, if you were teaching coaching, so you wanted to teach learners how to run a coaching session with someone. If the objectives was to understand what open body language is, it would be really important in your animation to have the characters display open body language, or potentially they could display closed body language and another animated character could have a reaction to that. And just really make sure that you incorporate those learning objectives in the animation. So this is a personal tip that I have. When I'm creating animations, when I first got started, I was so pumped and energized to create a really detailed storyboard. So I knew in my head exactly what I wanted the animation to look like. So I wrote out a big plan, I had little notes everywhere, and I knew exactly what I wanted on the screen. And I thought this was a really good idea because I thought as soon as I jump into this program, I'm going to be able to create it really quickly because I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm organized. When I was designing animations, I really noticed that this doesn't always work. So when you have an animation platform, there are often pre-made assets that are already in there. And if you create this awesome storyboard that's a really great concept and looks really good on paper, but then hop into the platform and they might not have the assets that match to what you're trying to do, it can completely change your storyboard. And you really don't want to spend all of this time storyboarding and then having to recreate a whole nother storyboard because the assets aren't there. An example of this is, say for example, you needed to create an animation of a fire burning down a house, and it could be for the fire brigade. If you created this really good scene about the house burning down and the fire brigade coming to put out the fire, but then you got into the animation program and there was no fire asset, that completely changes your whole animation because you can't follow through with your original plan. So I would recommend just doing a really rough plan of what you think you could create in the animation, or just hopping into the platform and making sure that the assets are there that you need prior to creating a really detailed storyboard. So that's it for this video on animations. I hope it added value to you. I'd love to see what animations people are creating out there, and if they have any tips or hints on how to create cool animations or awesome platforms to use. And yeah, I hope it added value, and have an awesome day.